5,000 subs. 5,000 people sitting in a room watching me juggle Technicolor virtual marbles for their amusement while I won't stand for it. Which is why I'm sitting down. Hey guys, it's Dancing FB18. For a while now, people have been asking me to make a tutorial for marble races. But here's the thing about that.
I'm just a wee little baby boy when it comes to algodoo.
There are many racers who are more qualified to do an algodoo tutorial than me, but there's one thing I can do. It's make skits. I don't mean to brag, but I do consider myself to be one of the better skit makers in the game. I take pride in my work, honestly, and watching other skits from around the community can be, shall we say, rough. You guys could use some help, and so I shall descend from upon my golden throne to offer my assistance to all of you heathens. Welcome to Dancing's Tips and Tricks for Writing Skits. Alright, so I'll be splitting this up into 3 parts. First, writing the overall story, second, writing the individual skits, finally, drawing the thing. Keep in mind, this isn't really a tutorial as much as it is just a collection of advice that I've taken from a few years of experience, so if you're looking for how to draw good, you might want to sign up for an art class. The first thing you'll need when crafting your finely tuned skits is a strong cast. Contrast is important in this regard. You want to have a nice blend of big and small personalities, of loud and quiet characters. This gives you more diverse personalities to play around with. Don't shy away from using stereotypes either, given that they're not harmful stereotypes, of course. I am apparently not allowed to speak today. Goodness gracious. Stuff like musician, or matchmaker, or lazy is fine if done well. When you're making your characters, don't worry too much about making them incredibly deep right off the bat, especially if they're a larger cast. A lot of these characters will be eliminated before you have a chance to develop them, and if not, you can develop them as you go along. Speaking of developing, there are several ways to develop your cast, but one thing that I like to do to develop characters is to ask, why?
Why do I insist on juggling these Technicolor circles for your amusement?
No, not that kind of why. I'm talking about asking why your characters act the way they do. Why does Yellow immediately agree with Tan that she should be normal? Maybe it's because she insists on trusting people as a philosophical choice. Why does Pink always seem to fail miserably in finales? Seriously, it's happened like 3 times now. Maybe it's because she has anxiety that peaks when she gets near the end of a series. Why do all my marbles have mental health issues? Projection. Moving on. Now when it comes to overall plot lines, you do have to be careful because these characters can be eliminated at any time. You will probably have to abandon some plot lines because, well, the characters involved are all gone. Unless you're one of those that includes eliminated characters in your skits, in which case you're a coward. In general, it's a good idea to have at least one plot line planned for every character, but don't pressure yourself too much with that. If needs be, you can always make them up as you go. By the way, quick question for the class, how do I segue into a completely different topic? Now it's time to actually write your skits, or it's almost time to actually write your skits. First, you need to choose which marbles will show up. Sometimes this is as simple as taking a bunch of marbles you haven't used in a while and poking them with a stick until they do something. Otherwise, this is where the planned or not so planned plotlines come in. The optimal goal in every skit is to establish something. That something can range from Olive likes cooking to so-and-so ran away from an abusive family when they were younger, leaving them emotionally scarred. You might need to build that one though. Once you figure out what you want to establish, then you need to figure out what characters are needed to establish it. For example, remember this skit? The entire purpose of this skit was to establish that Red and Lime were dating. So obviously to make this happen, Red and Lime have to be involved. A great way to establish that they're dating is to show them on a date. Hence, Olive the chef is there cooking for them. This also doubles as a way to better explain his character. Finally, I needed someone to question them who might be out of the loop regarding their relationship. I figured that the aggressively introverted Pink would suffice. So you have your character selected. Now it's time to actually write your déjà vu. If there's one tip I can give you is to try and give your characters different voices, or as different as possible. Maybe one character can have a more refined voice, while another can be more rough around the edges, huh? Another still can utilize more complicated and grandiose verbiage. And I just described these 3. You're welcome! It's a small thing, but goes a long way towards making characters distinctive. But while it is useful for building character, it's not the only method you have. Another is... Oh, so that's how you segue. I get it. Just to make this absolutely clear, I must stress again that this is not a straight-up tutorial for how to draw an algodoo. Just a few tips for how to make your skits look more interesting. And it all starts with levels.
What, like Mario levels? I didn't know you were such a hardcore gamer, Dancing.
Stage levels, to be more precise. Basically, it means using different heights to create visual interest. Having a skit where everyone is just standing upright talking to each other is quite visually boring, but But what if one of those characters, say the center one, is sitting down? We're getting there. But there's still more we can do. Well, if we lowered one person, maybe we can raise another, say by putting them on a slightly elevated platform. Now that looks much better. If you've ever noticed how all of my skits involve some kind of set piece for the marbles to sit or stand on, this is why. It gives me more options when it comes to leveling. Now, this is all well and good, but just having these 3 marbles in this position the entire time is also boring. This is why the second main tip I can give is motion. Pretty straightforward, but very crucial. Have
Jared say his lines correctly.
Have your marbles move around. Maybe having sitting marbles stand up to better make their point. Sit down and get comfortable as they join a conversation. Walk closer or farther away as they're explaining something, etc. You can even throw some more extravagant stuff in there if it fits the character. Alright, that reminds me. Knowing your characters well really helps with drawing the skits. Different characters move in different ways by different amounts. For example, Gold in my series moves a ton, since she tends to make big, dramatic gestures as she's speaking. In contrast, Gray barely moves at all. In fact, they're almost always in this exact pose. I find stuff like that fun, and not just because it makes them easier to draw, because it expands their character in a way that the script itself can't. One last thing you can do to really give your skits some pop is to add background events. Lav and her antics are probably what you think of in this regard, but I swear there's more to it than silly gags. Something as simple as a reaction by a background character can add a lot more life to your series, like Blue seemingly getting angry with Brown for trying to cheer him up. I still don't think I could explain exactly why he did that, it just felt like something he would do. Again, knowing your characters well helps immensely. Other stuff like Magenta helping Orange every time she falls, even applying a band-aid to her leg, that magically shifts around because the proportions of my marbles are non-existent. Or Violet slowly falling back asleep, Black suddenly having a mini Magenta doll, and yes, Lav being too cool for anyone. All of these actions add so much personality to these characters, while not being forced into the script. Body language is an important way for people to express themselves, and your characters are no different. But now, it's time for my most important piece of advice, and that's to have fun. If everything I've said in this video seems daunting, like it's too many things to keep track of, don't bother. Do what's most enjoyable for you. One of the best things about this community is how many different styles there are. What I do is completely different from people like Mikon or Kenline Pie. Even when comparing me to another skit drawer like Cloud, we're on completely different planets in terms of tone and art style. The point is, do what makes you happy. Enjoy yourself. Even if that means not following my advice. And also stay away from my golden throne!